Hello there, my name is Dr. Salim Javed and we are talking about the understanding cinema and how initially films, faced a very strong, force from organized religion and politics, and how they started discarding films on all platforms by all means possible, by all media possible. Now, a very interesting development that I would like you to know is MPPC. Now, on January 1st, 1909, the major components of film industries, you remember that I was talking about 9 companies joined together under Edison leadership in a protective business association called the Motion Picture Patents Company, or MPPC. Now, it is an attempt by 9 companies, as you can see the names: Edison, Biograph, Vitagraph, Esne, Selig, Lubin, and Kellum, and the American branches of French companies like Stars and Pathé, and one distributor, George Clooney, the biggest domestic importer of the foreign film. So it was a company made by these people, MPPC, Motion Picture Patents Company, and Edison was obviously the head. Now these 9 companies, along with Star and Pathé, and then George Clooney, so among them, these companies held all the disputed patents. Now, this is something really important, that among them they held all the disputed patents. Now, Edison kinetograph, as we know it, and because it was not patented for rest of the world, that's why Lumiere brothers were able to experiment, and then they came with their own machine. So you know the story, all that. Anything that was, then you have theatrograph, a lot of when I have already discussed about things. So all the disputed patents related to film camera, projectors, later on film material also. So these giants came together, formed an association called MPPC, Motion Picture Patents Company, and they set a conglomerate, so called, so where they have patents related to uh, projector, projection technology, camera, and later on film material also. Kodak, Eastman will join soon, and by pooling their rights, they became for a while the most powerful economic force in the film industry. Now, their strict policy, now what they did, the trust enforced a strict policy refusing to sell camera equipments or patents to anyone who wasn't a member. So, if you are not associated with these 9 people, sorry, we are not selling our films to you. We are not selling our film equipments to you. We are not letting you use our equipments in any form whatsoever. So this actually barred manufacturers outside the patent company from producing films. Now, this is something not many of us know, that the system itself is let itself eat by few people. Now, this monopolistic grip of MPPC later on added Kodak company with it also, and they said ki look, you are selling your raw material only to us. If you decide, we are a large pool, we will be consuming most of your material, and the only condition is that you are not selling your raw stock other than 9 of us. Now think of the times, think of the power, think of the gang, I'll call it a gang, MPPC. Think of the power of this gang. So Kodak said, yes, okay, fine, I have no problem as long as I have business and I'll be selling my material to you, and this further established their dominance in the film industry more. you know so now, not, I mean, up till here it is like fine, you can understand, but think of the other tactics that they have used. The patent companies exerted an iron grip on the film industry, enforcing draconian measures that stifled competition. It outright refusal to sell or lease films and projectors to exhibitors. Now exhibitors are on the line who dare to collaborate with non-member companies. Forget about you know other people. Now they are targeting exhibitors. I mean, how many people were there? Makers and exhibitors. Obviously Pathé and Star were the distributors, but look at the game going on. Now the further hinder its rivals, the company imposed a hefty tax of $2 per week on its licensed exhibitors. Not only they have, they need to have all the required permissions to show their films, they have to pay, I mean, $2 was a huge amount, 5 cents was the ticket. They had to pay $2 per week on its, license, and simply for the privilege of renting its projectors and films. So a lot of people started looking for alternative. However, in 1910, in a ruthless bid to cement its dominance, the patent company forced the sale of the largest of these exchange to its newly established distribution subsidiary called the Journal Film Company. Now think of what's going on. If you are doing business with us, you are not doing with anyone. Okay, you will supply only to us. If you are supplying to us, you are not supplying to others. Okay, if you are my exhibitor, along with this you have to pay a hefty fee to use my equipment and my films. And then on the other hand, okay, this is the distribution through which you can operate. You will not operate other than this distribution setup. I mean, where to go? It then systematically dismantled the rest of the competition, cutting off their access to film and driving them out of the business. Now, this is the power of MPPC. Now, but out of these so many so many points which are negative in nature, only one point which I, while reading it, realized to be a very, very good point, that in an era when image clarity and the sophistication of camera and projectors were notoriously unreliable, the patent company producers distinguished themselves as the dominant force in the film industry thanks to the exclusive control over the finest equipments and film stocks, because they had all the patents with them. So they had the finest of the equipment of that time, and obviously an exclusive right to have best of the raw stock of that time. So critically, the films that were produced by MPPC, by these 9 giants distributed by to this Star and Pathé and obviously the biggest importer of US. So these many people, their films were technically superior. You know, this is something which is like very interesting, feature about MPPC. They were very sure because obviously they had all the patents. They had best of the equipments. Although their films tend to be static, uninspired, and lacking in creative narratives, they provided audience with an unparalleled level of technical expertise that very few other manufacturers could achieve without access to the patented technology, the point that I just talked about. Um, you know, Now furthermore, the trust ability to guarantee robust distribution network drew many foreign distributors. Now please think of, they were like doing whatever they were doing in their country, but think of it from a foreign distributor's perspective. Okay, they don't have to contact 10 people, they have to contact only MPPC, you know that okay, we are coming, give us our film, take our film, give us our film at this particular rate, take our film at this particular rate. So there was not, so the entire foreign distributors were actually technically, I mean from a business point of view, were at ease with MPPC. I am not hailing high MPPC, but there were certain things. Now as I was saying, that had the motion picture patent company MPPC succeeded as intended, they would have established a complete monopoly over the American film industry and a substantial portion of the international market by 1912. What does it mean? That it actually did not happen. That's why I am reading it. However, history often reveals that excessive paranoia can incite a backlash. Now, what is that backlash? The 10,000 licensed exhibitors who had signed with the patent company in 1910 bitterly resented paying the weekly license fee of $2 demanded by the trust and were prepared to bolt whenever they got the chance. More important, several independent distributors had managed to survive MPPC's pressure to sell out. Lot of filmmakers did, but many of them did not also, to sell out by going into production themselves. Now this is something, a cherry on the top of the cake. So lot of distributors, independent distributors, decided to venture into production themselves with foreign equipments and film stock. Now think of, now this is what exactly you have to do when you watch documentaries of many successful investors of 1800, I am not taking the names, and then some World War I who made money in World War II, and then before dot-com bust. Then desperate time needs desperate measures. Distributor is turning into a production, into production, getting into production themselves with the help of foreign equipments and film stock. And who are these distributors who became producers? Paramount is one of them. You must have seen some Hollywood film and you must have seen initials Paramount. I can talk about Paramount at length, but obviously it is not that format. Now at least two of these distributors, producers, Carl Laemmle on Independent Motion Picture Company IMP and William Fox of Greater New York Film Rental Company, successfully challenged the trust and that became, later on they became major Hollywood powers, or the chief executive of Universal Pictures. You must have seen, you must have heard this name, Universal Pictures, and Fox Films. Later on these people became, the important people in these company for many years after patented company and its members were defunct. By 1912, in fact, there were over 40 independent producers. Now, on the one hand, just before 5 minutes, I was talking about the might of MPPC, and here I am talking about that against that, more than 40 independent producers, large or small, they were completely against the patents company. And look at, think of the times, and I really wonder. I mean, when I read these details, it excites me like anything. And think of the times that uh, battles, not battle, yes, battle also, you can say, cases and technically battles are fought in court and in the street. Obviously, if it is a legal matter, everything is fine, that you have violated my rights, I have the patent, you have used my machine. No, I technically did not use a machine. Okay, you have, okay, come to the court. Now cases were fought in court and other things were fought in streets. And there were like so many cases in court and so many small or big fights in on street, that later on MPPC was charged for violating Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. Guys, read about this, read about this act called Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. It was used against JP Morgan also. I mean, you must be wondering that why, Salim sir, you are teaching film, you are talking about JP Morgan. But just it reminded me of JP Morgan, that by using this law, JP Morgan was also, cornered for some time. Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. Now, in legal, so read about it. It's a very important rule. Now, by 1917, now what happened, that in a lot of cases were going against this MPPC. A lot of independent producers, small, big, those who were crushed, they filed case against MPPC. Now think of the time, I am talking about somewhere 1913 right now. I mean, the act is of 1890, obviously the act is old, it is being used at this point of time. So First World War is about to break. So by using this act, Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, MPPC was brought in court. So cases were going on, suddenly the First World War took place. So the proceedings were drawn out by countersuits, interrupted by World War I and not completely resolved by 1917. Obviously 1914 to 1917 or 1918, so not resolved by 1917, when the court ruled against the defendant and ordered the patent company to disband. So by 1917, 1918, it was clear that MPPC, after creating a havoc, you know, con, you know, concentrated with power, was technically disbanded around 1917 and 1918. First World War. I mean, it should have been by 1914, but in 1914 First World War took place. So timing, it gave 3 to 4 more years. Now do you think that only because of the court case this was possible? Now, there are many other reasons, and I share that with you. Now, however, the trust MPPC had actually lost control of the film industry through its own short-sightedness and conservatism long before the decision was made. Now, what are the factors? Long before the decision was made means. Now, there are few very specific, very strong and very relevant reasons. Even they are so relevant that they are true even today also. Now, what are the reasons? Now, first of all, MPPC believed that audience is uneducated, and whatever we are giving them, they are liking it. So, we will keep providing them what we like and we think that the audience like, we will keep on doing that. We will not provide any alternative. We will not give them a fresh air of some variety. We will only give them one reel length film only. Now, this played such a crucial role in the downfall of MPPC, their stagnation, their fixation with this one reel length film. Now, tell me something, that how would you or how can you make a Shakespeare play in one reel? Now, one reel has obviously got some length, some duration, but can you make Macbeth in 5 minutes? Will you be making and justifying with the theme of Othello, squeezing it to 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 8 minutes, whereas a 3-hour production is required? Now, this fixation, this illogical attachment with one reel is one of the major reasons of the downfall. Now, second reason was that it is true that the early film goers were untutored laborers, many of them non-speaking immigrants, whose verbal skill was not at par. So, and their visual cognition are quite distinct from each other. So, this was the profile of initially film going audience, and MPPC thought, the patent company thought, the name of 9 companies, 2 distributors and 1 exhibitor, they thought this is what the audience is. Now, what is the game changer? Like, suppose I am born in an area where a certain food is the speciality of that area. I am eating that food only. How do I know that this food is a normal food or this food is something that I don't like? Unless I take you to a different mohalla, I offer you a different dish and you like it, and then you come back in your mohalla and say, okay, this is a dish that I don't want, I want that also. That is what precisely happened with the culture of one reeler. Okay, MPPC in US, boss, we are making one reeler, you ignorant being, you like it, we produce it, we give you high quality, we will give you no experimentation, you like it, we will give you, thank you very much. Suddenly, 2 films which nobody talks about, they were imported from Italy. These two films, according to me, are one of the reasons, one of the obvious reason for the downfall of MPPC. Obviously, their stubbornness is definitely the reason, but these two films actually offered an alternative. You know, so after seeing Iron Man, then people started talking about why we are not making it, something like that. So then we made better than that Bahubali, so something like that. So I mean, what are these films that I am so passionately talking about? Now, this is first of all films like J. Stewart's Blackstone's five-reeler, The Life of Moses, which was like released in 1909, and I'll be talking about his trust later on. Now there were two films that are the most important films. One is called Kabiria. Now, Kabiria is a 1913 film from Italy, and Q Viva is another film which is from Italy again. And these two films, when these two films were introduced, and these are like 9-reeler film, and these are the films which are 13-reeler film. So the film that was like the first film that came was Queen Elizabeth, and then Quo Vadis was the film. It was directed by Enrico Guazzini. So if you get a chance to you see the poster of Quo Vadis. I mean, this is one of the posters, and it is a film from 1913. And you won't believe that this is a film from 1913, though D.W. Griffith tried to copy it, and to some extent he like fine succeeded. But he saw these two films. Ben-Hur is something that if you have seen Ben-Hur, then you will realize that the Ben-Hur has taken its inspiration from Quo Vadis, and then another film, Kabiria, that I was talking about. Look at these two photos from that film. This Kabiria, lavish sets, huge crowd, animals, people, chariot, what not, and Americans were flabbergasted by watching these two films, and they declared that we are not interested in one-reeler. Give us films like these. That's why D.W. Griffith becomes important. That's why D.W. Griffith becomes so important. So nobody talks about these two Italian films, Quo Vadis and Kabiria. Nobody talks about. Whereas these two films have such a great impact on American films that D.W. Griffith actually understands this, and he actually modifies his style of filmmaking, and this is how Birth of a Nation is born. Now you can understand how MPPC, how the impact of these two films shape the very nature of film industry in not only in US, actually around the world. Thank you very much.